Rick. Hello, everyone. My name is Lee. We are here at the zine making workshop, Colors and Shapes. I will be co-facilitating with Mimosa Shaw, and we're going to go through a little bit of our agenda with you today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mimosa, as Lee just mentioned. My pronouns are she and her. And today for our presentation and workshop, I just wanted to review what the process will be. We will start with a brief introduction in which we will ask for you to share your name and your pronouns if you feel comfortable, as well as what your experiences have been making zines. We will discuss what actually is a zine, how to make a zine, and then what's a plan for creating one. And then we'll start the process of creating, and then if time permits, sharing. We welcome you to message us in the chat box that is available for Zoom users on the right. And if you are watching from Facebook Live, of course, there will be a place for you to ask questions as well, which will be shared with us via another chat feature. But in the meantime, we'd love to hear from you. So because we have other staff who are with us, I will start with a staff member and then we will proceed to the rest of our group. So if you're able to view staff member who are the next people who need to go, please let me know. And we'll have Becca.
Hi, my name is Becca Boland. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the supervisor of advisory services here at the Skokie Public Library. And I can pass it along to the next person who is, can I call on you, Mandy?
Sure. Is my video started? Yeah. Okay, my name is Mandy O'Brien and I am a youth services librarian. I don't know what happened to my video, but that's okay. I'm she, her, hers. And I really enjoy zines, but this is the first adult program I'm actually kind of participating in as a semi-facilitator. So I'm kind of excited about it. I love our Skokie Public Library adult programs and all of you wonderful adult programming people, and I'm glad to collaborate. Thank you. Oh, I'm gonna pass it on to, I will pass it on to Rachel.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel. Pronouns are she, her, hers. And I, oh, look, Mandy's beautiful face is now visible on camera. My experience with zines, I have been making zines since I was in high school, and I wrote very, let's be honest, totally terrible poetry, and drew pretty terrible stick figure kinds of art. And I am here to say that I 100% promote that as a zine. I treasure it. So yeah, whatever you put in a zine is awesome.
I can go next since I'm the other staff person here. My name is Lee. Like, as I said before, I use they, them, or she, her pronouns. My experience with zines, kind of like Rachel, I started making them not in high school, but in college. My degree from my bachelor's college is in creative writing, so I did a lot of sort of literary zines, and I've also edited a couple of zines with my friends that to have them submit their artwork and their poetry and fiction as well. So that's my experience with zines.
All right. And as the evening progresses, if at a time you want to speak up, you can unmute yourself and talk and share a little more about your experiences with zines. We welcome anyone and everyone. One of the things we want to emphasize throughout our series is that there is no need for you to possess abstract expertise. This is really about celebrating where you are right now in this very moment and how to Make the most of all the things that you're interested in or paying attention to right now. It's not intended to be a finished product, although if you wanted to walk away with a finished product, you could. I'm going to start sharing the screen again, and we're going to progress to another slide. And please let us know if you have any questions in the interim. So, what is a zine? Zines are short for magazine, but fanzine or fan magazine is where the name actually comes from. Oftentimes, these are DIY, do-it-yourself, published on small press. They are often on a limited run and meant to be shared with social groups or intended as a document or a culmination of other movements within that social group. Some of the things that we found interesting and that Lee has actually done a bit of research on is how fanzines or zines came about. In the 1930s, particularly in the North American context, we had science fiction fandoms. So just think about all the things that came out in the 1930s with radio plays or even cult films. And then as the years passed, in the 1950s, we look at underground presses and counterculture, the ways that, for example, the Fluxus art movement capitalized on how people could create things that question what in fact is the very medium of art and how we enmesh ourselves with it, that it's not simply reduced to things that you can have published through others, but something that you can take ownership of and publish yourself. Now, of course, this isn't necessarily something new. We had people like William Blake in the 1700s who was making his beautiful materials and art objects and creating his own DIY movement in the most punk way possible, except most people may not associate him as punk. And then in the 1980s and 90s, with the growth of the punk music scene that erupted in both the United Kingdom and in Western Europe, as well as New York City, we had a great punk music scene that developed. And in fact, we have several people in our community who are continuing to self-publish, albeit they do so digitally. One of the more famous scenes of that time is Punk Planet. So really, there are any number of ways to get involved, and I didn't even get to talking about the ways in which each of these scenes had subcategories as well. There was a Riot Girl zine of feminist punk musicians who created their own unique blend of not only music, but expression that found itself on the page. And then there's also the very interesting part about the distribution of these zines, whether it was at a show or whether it was through just networks of people. Of course, before the internet was a thing, how did people even begin to create and share and make it well known that this is a thing that can be shared and read? And that's the interesting part. Some of these zines now have a second or third or fourth life in multiple archives across the US and elsewhere. Lee, I don't know if you had anything else to add to what I shared about the history.
No, that was very well stated, and I just had some examples of, like from the 1930s, like books like Brave New World from Aldous Huxley, and then C.S. Lewis is also another big science fiction writer that came up during that time. So people who read their work and enjoyed their sort of universe would write zines about their universe. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and one of the things we want to emphasize too is like zines can be about anything and everything. Like, I know we have a couple of Muppet enthusiasts in our house tonight, and I bet you they might know about a couple of Muppety zines that are out there. And if not, well, now's the time to make one. They cover a wide range of genres. There's personal zines, aka perzines. There's informative, instructive ones, your travel journal. There's literary zines. I myself have not been involved with zine creation as much, but I did create a zine along with several other people as part of a conference presentation. And instead of a handout, we made a zine that was filled with the activities we wanted to share, with the intention that the zine would be passed around. And we actually created a page that had a date due feature. So you could write in your name if you wanted to and pass it on to the next person. There's also essays and artwork. Some of the most interesting presses, independent presses that are out there, are producing zines that are extraordinary in terms of the complexity, but also in terms of just the way in which they're following the lead of or establishing new ways of connecting current revolutionary movements. One of the many prolific zine makers out there, it happens to be prison abolitionist Miriam Kaba, who goes by the moniker on Twitter, Prison Culture. There are wonderful things that are contained within zines, in addition to artwork that's both exquisite and detailed and profane and cartoony, comics, interviews, recipes. Some of these can be themed or conceptual. And I know that Lee is going to show us some examples from her collection of zines.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and share here, and hopefully I can able to pin this. Okay, so just wanted to share a couple of examples of these different types of zines. This first one here is called Vegan Eats for Vegan Freaks. And so this is an example of a recipe zine where, you know, it's pretty simple. This person just sort of photocopied some recipes that they put in there. So it's very simple, but I feel it's effective. And you can see that the background is black and white, but the person also intended this to be sort of a coloring book. So that's sort of another activity that is not just a recipe, you know, zine, but it's also a coloring book that you can do along. This is the example of a.
Can I interrupt for just a second? Are we able to maybe stop sharing the slides so that we can see?
Oh, sure.
Thanks. Sorry.
Okay, perfect. This is an example of sort of a tour journal. So it's called Sidekick by Emily Tim, and it's basically just text, but they documented one of the tours that they were on. So, and I know we talked a little bit about fanzines, and this, I would consider this a fanzine. So I don't know if any of you all were into Sailor Moon when you were a kid, but I definitely was when I was a preteen and a teenager. So this is just an illustration and artwork zine put out, and I was going to show a couple of examples. So this is a cute little illustration of Luna, the black cat that is in the cartoon. So this would be an example of a fanzine. And so, some other ones. So this is sort of more like a conceptual sort of zine. It's called Flux. And it has multiple contributors. So there's text and there's also images on there. And the theme was called Expositions of Self. So it's sort of about how people relate to their bodies. So so these are just a couple of examples of, you know, the very many types of zines that one can make.
Yeah.
Oh, and these were a couple of other zines as well that we didn't get to, but you see that Flux is in there, and these are two other zines. So Fearsome Futures is another illustration-based zine, and then the one on the right side, Frontier, is more of a conceptual and illustration-based zine.
We have a question from one of our participants about Muppet examples of zines. And I actually don't have a Muppet zine, but I don't know if anyone else has one this evening.
I shared a link to one that existed in the past. It was something that was published in the 90s. I haven't found any more contemporary Muppet zines. I've been looking. Mandy, do you have any that you know of?
I know of a lot of other Muppet resources, but as far as zines, I only know of what you shared. So, yeah. But we will be on the lookout now. Becca and I will be further Muppeting ourselves for you.
Okay, scour away, Muppet away. So, did you have anything?
Perhaps your
further?
daughter needs to make a Muppet zine that we can all enjoy.
Yes. All right. Anyone else have anything further to add about examples or things that we didn't cover about zines that you know about and we just did not gloss enough into?
The only other thing that I can think of, and I think it's particularly relevant because of the color theme for tonight, there are a lot of like arts and crafts scenes that specifically have art projects or patterns or whatever the case may be for whatever art you might be into as a part of the zine. And I know that that's a huge part of the zine world. So that would be the only other one that I could think of.
Thank you, Becca. All right, we're going to go on to the next slide. So, what are you going to need for this evening? We recommend having an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So, like so, which I know periodically bleeding into my background here, but a white sheet of paper will do justice. Or if you happen to have newspaper, magazine print, they work too. You don't need a blank sheet of paper to make this happen. We recommend having scissors, a writing utensil of choice, and any other supplies you feel like working with, whether it's scrap paper, glue, cutouts, yarn, you name it. There are umpteen ways to make yourself known and heard through a zine. And what's going to happen next is I'm going to stop the screen share and Lee will show us how to create a zine using a single sheet of paper.
So to make an 8-page zine, go ahead and I think sorry, I'm just gonna have one sheet because I have multiple sheets here. The first thing you want to do is fold it lengthwise. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, or also hamburger fold if you're a teacher. And please feel free to you know, ask me to slow down or redo anything if you need some time. So we're gonna go ahead and undo that fold. Okay, so the next step we're going to do is we're going to take the two sides and we're going to make them meet in the middle. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And we're going to go ahead and fold. Okay. And now we're going to go ahead and open that again. And the last thing we're going to do is go ahead and fold it down the middle again. So in half, the other way. Alrighty. Now that we have that in half, we're going to fold the other way from the open side. Now we're going to flip it over and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to, from the open side, we're going to fold to the middle. So now when you should have something that sort of looks like a little zigzag. We're going to use our scissors now. And what we're going to do is there's sort of a midline right here. It's a little hard to see on the screen, but we're going to be cutting from the side that's folded down to the middle here. So I'm just going to do mine this way. So the cut should stop right in the middle of those 4 squares.
We have a question about asking us to do that again. Would we be able to review that one more time? Lee?
The cutting part?
This person didn't indicate. I think they want us to redo the folding one more time. But I just want to reassure you, we also have a link to directions if you want to see them in still, and Becca handily posted them in our chat if you didn't get them this time.
Okay, yeah, let's redo the folding part. So do you want me to start over on the?
I think just the folding, because we already cut it, so.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, if we're starting here and we already have our 8 squares, it should sort of look like a little tent with 2 squares on the side. Okay. So it should make a little tent in the middle here. I don't know if it's easier to, sorry, my phone isn't up that high, but and
imagining a mountain, and and the mountain is getting squished together, and you got it like that, exactly, or a tent.
And so where we're cutting is from where it's folded down to the middle. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to go ahead and make it into our little tent formation again. This is sort of, I'll probably redo this part a couple times, but so what we're going to do now is we're going to pinch the top squares and the bottom squares. We're going to sort of swing them to touch each other like this. So I'm going to go ahead and show that again. So when you have it in tent formation and your cut is in the middle, we're going to make sure we're going to swing them so that they touch like that. And it should look like a little cross or plus sign when you're done. What I'm doing is I'm just making these creases a little bit more creased. And so this, and then from here you can just go ahead and fold it down, and now it'll be like a little booklet.
Lee, you're getting encouragement that you're doing a great job. I have a quick question for you. Does it matter like what's the top and what's the bottom, or like which side is which, or is it just like whatever your heart tells you to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it matters which side is top or bottom. So some might, one side might be straighter than the other, and that's fine. But no matter which way you fold it, it should still turn into a booklet.
Well, one way though is that if you invert it now, the fold is at the top. Turn it over the other way. It's more like keep on going. It's more like a book with less cuts on the top, I think, if you open it like that.
There should be equal cuts on the top and the bottom. Some of them are just more enclosed than others. So like, if you look, this is my quote unquote bottom.
I know, I've been making this book for years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I get it. I've never seen it made like that before, but I always made it like vertically or horizontally, and then you just push it in, on the hamburger's fold instead. So it's
gotcha.
interesting.
And
but either way, oh, go ahead, Melissa.
I was going to say you did an excellent job demonstrating, Lee, and I want to emphasize too that there might be multiple ways to do the same type of thing. And of course, I didn't get to click on the links that Becca shared, but I'm sure they might also provide little nuances on things that we didn't even think about. But thank you.
Okay, so does everybody have their little mini zines? And since today's theme is shapes and colors, we're going to go ahead and go into some prompts for you to all think about.
And I just want to emphasize too that we have we just demonstrated one particular way, but there was a really fun infographic on how to fold a sheet of paper, which we thought was just too cute. So we wanted to reshare it, and we can send this as an attachment to you all if you are curious afterwards. So it's time for prompts. These prompts were developed by Mandy, who is with us this evening. She has been developing them over a series of years as part of a program that she works on with middle grade and young adult patrons at the library. Of course, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but these are prompts that she uses in part for her group called Write On. And we loved these prompts. We thought that they really spoke to things that we are all thinking about right now. They're a really great way to just jog your memory, as well as get yourself in the groove of thinking about something, because sometimes you can just sit there and be like, well, what do I want to write about? Like, I have all this stuff in my head. How do I take it out and put it onto a piece of paper? Sometimes the hardest part is just starting. So with that in mind, we just wanted to get you to think about the tangible things. Like, what's your favorite color? Why? What does a favorite color even sound like? If that's your thing. Do you have a favorite shape? Are angles your thing? Curves your thing? What are the shapes you see being repeated in the environment around you? Is there a piece of art that you really love? You know, the thing that's behind me right now, this is a backdrop, and it's an image of a famous painting by an artist named Yves Klein, and he trademarked that color, that particular shade of blue. And while some may question whether or not what he's doing is what it is it art or not, that's not the point. I just happen to love the color and just the explosion of it. What kinds of colors or shapes happen to be showing up for you right now? And how do these colors and shapes in nature play with each other? Lee, did you have anything to add about these prompts, or did you want to talk a little more about a creative ritual?
I'm not sure if I have a creative ritual per se, but I think what I like to do to sort of get me in the zone is just to like set up a little workspace for myself to know that this is like my creative zone, so that it's, you know, when I'm in this space, then this is the time for me to make things with my hands, or to write a poem or a story or something. So that's sort of how I get into my creative zone.
Did anyone else have things to add about how they get creative, or what are the things that are really getting them into the groove of trying to make something, or have they already made something?
Mimosa, I'm going to share. This is Mandy. I have, speaking of colors and shapes, the color blue has always spoken to me, but all colors, I really love colors. But recently, shapes, I've been obsessed, and I'm not even kidding, obsessed with flowers, particularly daisies. I actually bought a winter coat with daisies on it, but it spoke to me. But part of the reason is my father died this summer, and he always loved flowers. And I've just been noticing flowers everywhere, and I've just been looking for it, particularly daisies. So that's been something that, like, everywhere I go, I see daisies now. And so it's really interesting once you open your eyes to that, and looking, you know, colors, shapes, nature, everything, how you can have a favorite shape. I talk with little kids all the time in my story times, and I ask them, what's your favorite shape? They always get asked what their favorite color is, but we should have favorite shapes too. So there's nothing wrong with saying oval or triangle. So think about what your favorite shape is.
That is some excellent advice. Becca, did you have something to share?
Yeah, I was just thinking, it made me think about the fact that as kids, like that's a thing that you talk about all the time, like your favorite color and that sort of thing. And as adults, it's not something that we do a whole lot. It's not very often that one asks another adult, "What's your favorite color?" Um, and so, yeah, that's a really interesting thought. I mean, the circles that I run in, because they are crafty humans, we do talk about favorite colors a lot, but I don't think that that's common necessarily.
I started thinking about these things, about colors and shapes, because during the time I've been working from home, and initially when there were stricter lockdown procedures in place in different parts of the country, I had a group of friends who congregated online, and each week they would come up with a theme around which they would share pieces that they had written or things that they had made around that theme. And for 1 week, actually several weeks, they focused on colors. And so that inspired me. And I was thinking to myself, like, you know, we're asked a lot about what is our favorite color. One of the things that doesn't come up as often is how did that become your favorite color? Or what do you associate with that color? Or what color don't you like at all? And then just taking it from there. There's so many different directions. With that in mind, I'm just going to exit the screen share so that we can begin to do some creating. I will go ahead and put down some of these questions in the chat for folks who want to have that as a reminder while they're creating.
I think I'm gonna, going off what Mandy said, I really like what you said about plants, Mandy, and I actually have a lot of house plants myself, and I always like to get sort of the patterns and the shapes and the colors and sort of how they work with one another in nature. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and base my zine off of that.
So I'm doing, taking some of these questions and putting them at the top of some of the pages of my 8-page zine that I created following Lee's directions, so that they will act as like, okay, this page is what I'm gonna start this prompt with, but you don't have to do it that way.
If anybody else would like to share, you know, what they think they're gonna make their zine about, that would be great too.
I'm just going to briefly speak while Lee's continuing to create, because I wanted to stop and share a little bit about my process. And I also wanted to give enough time for others to share as well. I only got to one page of my zine right now, but I chose the prompt, how are colors and shapes defining your world right now? Or are they denying the world you find yourself in? And for myself, I found that I see a lot of squares and rectangles and boxes, whether I'm looking at a computer screen or I'm looking around at the at signs and the straight lines and angles that I find in them. And oftentimes when I go out for walks or attempts to get a different perspective, I'm craving curvilinear figures, things that have organic shapes, things that I can't easily manipulate, or things that are so, you know, blob-like that they can be easily manipulated in ways that I didn't even fathom. So I'm just going to show folks the page that I created, and it may not appear as well, so please forgive me. And there you have it. Can you see it?
Mimosa, can you bring it closer to your camera? Because you're it's blending into your background.
Good point. Let me stop the virtual background and go ahead and make sure that folks can see it. Lee, did you want to share a little bit about what you're making? It looked really good.
Thank you. How caring for plants can also let you figure out how to care for yourself and others. So being a plant parent, plants can show you how to nurture and nourish yourself and others. And they need sun and circulation just like us. So, you know, it doesn't do well for plants to sort of sit in a stagnant room where there's no circulation going on. I think that can be similar for us, you know, like sometimes we need a change of scenery or we need just to get out and get some fresh air. And that's where I am so far. And I can definitely relate to you, Mimosa, about what you said. I feel like I'm more drawn to sort of naturally occurring shapes and more curvatures instead of like, I don't know, sharp lines, I guess. So I feel like I think about that a lot too when I'm looking at plants and when I'm looking at things that I gravitate towards.
Did anyone else want to share what they have made so far? Or are they just really in their creative zone and don't want to talk right now? That's cool too.
Hey, this is Tiffany, she, her. I can go ahead and share. I'm not crafty by any means. My like hands and eyes do not work together at all. But one of your prompts kind of made me think about like when specific colors have specific shapes tied to them. And like, I totally see it that way. Like you guys had a yellow circle and that's, you know, yeah, yellow is always a circle. Purple is always a parallelogram. Like there's just some colors and shapes that I think always have to be tied together. So I'm just trying to think of which ones popped to mind. I think I'm going to do a red square next. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy the way your brain thinks about colors and shapes and how they're tied together. So my book is Shapes and Colors, Perfect Matches.
I like that title, Tiff. That's great. Anyone else have something to share?
Hey, what are you doing?
Tiff, your comment made me think about how I had this conversation with some of my friends that when you were little and you had little folders for like the subjects in school, and there's certain colors that like corresponded with certain subjects. Like for me, green was always science, and red was always math for some reason. And then for English, it was blue for me. So yeah, I don't know why those colors like got matched up to those subjects, but it just felt right, you know, to write that on the folder.
Lee, mine, I was gonna say blue is English too. Maybe it's like, I don't know, to me, they're both kind of calming. Like I like reading, I like words, I like writing. So, you know, maybe it's that parallel.
Now they tell the kids which color to use for which thing. And I'm pretty sure green is science for my kid. Cause then that way they can say like, take out your green science folder, take out your blue English folder, take out your whatever. So everybody has the same folders for the same thing. So they're all on the same page.
And I just wanted to say that we started out with we started out with pen and paper, but you could easily just cut out pieces of paper or colored paper from a magazine or just a construction paper and make it your very own. And of course, Tiff asked, what subject is your Lisa Frank folder used for? And of course, art, music, the special subject known as unicorns and other mythical objects. Maybe we should do a zine session just on that. What do you think, Mandy? Yeah.
Or a Trapper Keeper zine thing, because I was from the Trapper Keeper era where I carried that around like with everything that I owned. I just thinking more about the shape of petals, and it's not going to be easy to see because I did it in pencil. My goal is to kind of try and do some kind of mosaic. I'm not very crafty, but this is just about something kind of correlating. I just was thinking about my dad again, which I've been thinking about so much, but it's called Fallen Petals. And on each page, I just wrote something like seasons changed. My dad had changed. My blueness became black. My dad was losing who he was. Yet he always bloomed. Instead of losing hair, he was now losing petals. Yet his presence is still everywhere. And then I ended with he loves me, because I thought if he loves me not. And so it's, you know, my father was dealing with some dementia, and it was really hard to see him losing who he was, but he still was himself. So I know it kind of works with shapes, and I'm going to have a lot of color in here. So it's kind of a therapeutic way. And I think that's a nice thing with zines. I know Rachel had mentioned before, you know, when she was in high school, she did zines. And one of my friends and I, we would go to the library, the public library, and photocopy zines. And they were very angsty. And we would try to hand them out on the CTA blue line. And everyone just thought they were like, what is this? And yeah, it was, but it was something. It was a way to express who I was in a time before the internet and all that. So yeah, I think these are really important. I'm curious to see, has anyone else done something that they want to share? Any of the patrons? I know a lot of you don't have your cameras on, but I would love to see. You don't have to show your face. You can hold up something if you've made something.
So I was thinking about, well, I started with my 3 favorite colors, which are purple, green, and orange. And I started just kind of doing like some scribbling. And then I was thinking about how those are the secondary colors. And then I was thinking about like secondary and what that word means, but like also then what secondary colors mean in relation to the term of being secondary. And that's about as far as I got in terms of my train of thought, but that's kind of where my brain went.
I love the idea of secondary colors too, and how they inform our life as well. All right, so now the game plan. So how do we go about continuing with the zines? There's a couple of approaches to consider. Some of you have already spoken about them, but I'll just go about it again. We're going to start with the pink blob. So now we've talked about the thing that matters to you, the what. So one of the things that your zine could then do in terms of helping you plan the content out is, well, so what? Why is this important? And that can really align with some of the more issue-based zines, like a zine on mental health, or a zine that talks about the importance of self-care. And then providing the now what, which is like, well, okay, now we've talked about what it is and why it matters. How can you make a difference? So a list of resources of some sorts. You could have a way to be creative with the medium. And we're looking at the Blue Blob right now and thinking about the different kinds of collaborators you could work alongside. Maybe you work on one page of a zine and some other folks do the other pages. Kind of like that handout / zine that I co-created with some folks for a conference earlier on. We talked a little bit about how some zines are really concrete and some zines are more conceptual. So one example of this is I have been working out on this, I shouldn't say working out, but rather working on a postcard ring. So essentially, there are a tree of people who have opted in to send postcards to each other, and we've decided to use two different prompts. One is more concrete and tangible, and the other is more conceptual. The conceptual one focuses on sharing with your postcard recipient what is one word or phrase that you keep beside your workplace or workstation or home office that you use as a mantra or as a way of living your life. So basically, what is your word to live by and why? But then looking at it more tangibly, because so many of us might be working from home, what is the view outside of your window, or what is the view outside of your doorway? There's also narratives and stories and slices of life, similar to what Mandy shared, which are so moving and powerful, and I think would serve well in a series of zines potentially, or if you just wanted to limit it to one, it could work that way. So over the past weekend, I went on a walk and I took pictures of the shapes that I saw and the textures and curves and colors that I was able to glimpse while I was on a walk. And so I wanted to add too that zines can often incorporate photos. They don't have to be drawings or collages or comics. They can include things that you have done in other media. I don't know, Lee, did I miss anything in these two slides?
I don't think so.
Okay. And we're going to take a little more time to share and reflect. So I'm going to stop the share here. All right, folks. We appreciate you coming to this program, sharing with us your approach and your ideas for how to make a zine. We are so grateful that you wanted to share your ideas with us, whether in the chat or as comments on others' zines. But is there anything that this exercise has provided you with in terms of inspiration? Or is there something about zines that you're thinking about trying now that you have come through this almost an hour of time with us? Oh, thank you, Corey. Corey wrote in the chat, these are great info and suggestions and good ideas for work or social zines. And Tiff, yes, we are really excited to explore the themes in coming weeks. The next one is about change and transformation. And one of our colleagues who is not here with us this evening will be talking about it. So I'm just going to write down the name of that, of that theme that we're covering. And by the way, that should be 12/14. It can feel like there's 114 days in December, but really, I promise you there's not. So it's 12/14. Change and transformation is the next theme we'll be covering on Monday, December 14th at 7:30. And thank you, Rick, for sharing the link to all of the other zine making workshops. Beyond change and transformation, we're also going to be looking at home and community. And then the following week after that, we'll be looking at themes of gratitude. For each session, we will also be sure to catch anyone up. So if you have a friend, someone else who you think might be interested, please ask them to come join us, and we'll be happy to share out our method for making a simple 8-page zine.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And if you want to finish your zine from this time and then share it next week or the week after, please feel free to do that too, because we would love to see what you created this first workshop.
Thank you, everyone, so much. We appreciate all of your contributions and suggestions and reflections.